always feel excited when I'm on my way here because I know that there's something magic that's going to happen. And today, again, I have to say, this is going to be a great show. Maybe it'll be the best one we've ever had. I don't know. But it certainly is warming my heart, and I am delighted to be here, and I want to welcome all of you and thank you for being here with us. And if you noticed, to the right of our little video screen, you can sign in if you'd like to be part of our chat, and we invite you to do that. You can ask questions, you can comment, you can engage with some of the other people that are in the chat, and just, be part of our community. And any point in time, write this number down, 919-518-9773. You are more than welcome to call in if you care to, or you can Skype in with us at computers, that's plural, the number 2, K voice. That's the number K, letter K voice. And you can do that anytime you like. If the moment is inspiring to you and you want to share something that you are feeling from your heart, some kind of experience you've had, just feel free. And I want to say hi to Amnon. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm great. And you?
Just
dandy.
Fantastic. Dandy. How's your week?
Good. Terrific, actually.
So far?
So far it's been marvelous, honey. Marvelous. And yours is good, too?
Oh, yeah. As long as it's sunny outside.
Yeah, heck yeah. I mean, I went out yesterday. It was like, there's sun in the sky. Yeah. I don't remember the time I felt that.
What is that thing?
What is that thing shining down on me? Let me get my glasses.
Yeah.
So here we go. All right. Today's show, oh my goodness gracious. A dear friend of mine who I respect very much began telling me this story the other day, last week, and I thought, wow, we got to have him on the show because it's one of those kinds of love stories that I love to share. I mean, I am in love with love, and I don't think that there's a better relationship that we can share in breaking free than loving someone or something enough that we all can feel it kind of reverberates to the rest of us. And so I'm going to be introducing my guest to you. Her name is Katherine Young, and I'm going to read his name because I can't remember. I know his first name, Frank Camacho, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. And what an interesting story. She, a socialite, married, had kids, was drawn to do some volunteer work in the prison, and he was in prison, and they met. And the story I present to you, Katherine and Frank. Welcome to my show.
Thank you.
Nice to see you here.
It's our pleasure.
Hey, Frank. How you doing?
Good.
Good. Nice to see you. So I'm going to start ladies first. How about that?
That's fine.
All right. So, Katherine, you are, and I just also want to say that Katherine is 70. What, Katherine?
72.
72. And Frank, you're 50, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you are from Guam originally, right?
Originally from Guam.
From Guam. And Katherine, where are you from originally?
South Texas.
South Texas. So here we have a Southerner, and we have a man from Guam. We have a socialite, and we have a guy that's been abused and in gangs and finds himself in prison. Okay? This is our story. So go ahead, Katherine. Start with yours. So tell us some things about you.
Well, I'm 72 years old, and I was called to visit prison, and I don't say that lightly. And we wrote a book about it. And because I was asked to write a book when I was visiting Frank at different prisons, people would walk up to me and say, I see your face on a book. And I say, well, I look like a lot of people. And then they would say, no, I'm supposed to tell you this because people are supposed to hear your story. I never thought about going to visit prison myself, not in my wildest dreams that I think about going and visiting prison. And it was, I trained with the Quakers, and I thought I would be sent to a women's prison. And instead they sent me to a men's maximum security prison in Lombok, California.
And you were, what were you doing work-wise at the time?
Well, I was not working. I was very involved in fundraising, philanthropy. I worked with Casa Pacifica, a child abuse shelter, and I worked on the design committee. I'd been a designer for 25 years, ASID. I'd gone to college in design and back to school. I helped with the symphony. I was a president of the Symphony League. All those kind of things a woman in my position did to offer back to the community. Mm-hmm. And then I had done so much in fundraising, but not really on the one-to-one. And I thought to myself, it was in my heart, I want to do something on a one-to-one basis. And all of a sudden, I had these things happen to me that said, you're supposed to go visit prison.
And that was like, then that was completely different than anything you would have ever thought about.
Never occurred to me.
And you were married at the time, right?
And I was married at the time, and loved my home. But there was this, like, there's got to be more in my life, because I was married to a very wealthy man. Not a bad man, but it just seemed like it was empty. And so one time I was going down on the train at Christmas. All this is in our book. But this gentleman who was blind sat beside me and said, told me that he did civil rights for inmates. And I was like stunned. So after that, and then my husband wanted to see Dead Men Walking. So you know how long ago this was. And then I had this bad case of vertigo, which I get periodically about every 10 years. But I couldn't lift my head off the pillow, and my husband was out of town, so my daughter came out and took me to the emergency. And I looked up, and there was a poster with the acts of charity, which is like visit the poor, feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, and visit prison. And visit prison was highlighted with a light. And I thought, man, you are a sick puppy. You know, you are seeing things. And so it took me about 2 weeks before I could drive, and I went back to church, St. Columbus in Camarillo, and I was sitting there, and then the fellow that was a visiting priest, he was there, and he stood up and said he wanted to invite us to visit prison. And I went, and I looked up, and I went, are you sure?
All right, hold on one second. I just want to clarify something. So you were getting all of these different signs of things that were occurring, just popped out of nowhere. You know, this man doing this prison thing, then you see the poster, and you see all these things out of nowhere, right? You haven't been to the prison yet.
No.
Okay.
In fact, prison, I never thought of that. I mean, I enjoyed Ed Harris and Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage and The Rock, but, you know, I never thought about prisons. I didn't know anybody in prison. And so when I went there, and all these happened within 6 weeks of each other, every 2 weeks, something happened. And then at the end, he said, I invite you to visit prison. And I thought, okay, are you sure? And I watched a VHS. This is how long ago it was. And I thought, yeah, I can chat with somebody. I've asked people for money. I respect everybody. Right. Everybody has a soul.
Okay, so hold that for just, let's stop right there for just a second. Let me go to Frank. So I want you to hold that spot. So Frank, you are brought up in Guam, right?
Yes.
Tell us about your early years.
Well, I was born and raised in Guam. My parents divorced when I was a little kid. I was in and out of a foster home. Started to roam the streets at a very, very early age, and learned a lot of just the street survival, and started getting into trouble and hanging out with the wrong crowds. And I didn't know whether it was wrong or right. I was just caught up into the wrong people, and ended up going to juvenile youth homes and juvenile homes, and then ended up to going into the big house, which is the penitentiary. I started going to a juvenile home when I was actually 13 years old. And ended up in the penitentiary in Guam, the Guam penitentiary at the age of 21 or 22 years old.
And you got there, and what did you do to get into the big house?
I was charged with robberies, numerous of robberies that were happening around Guam, and running around with a bunch of guys robbing stores and everything that I guess that had money.
So you were guilty?
Yes, I was.
You were guilty.
Yes.
And then how did you go from Guam to the United States?
Well, when I had gotten sentenced into Guam, and I was given 30 years, and like I said, I was only 21, 22 years old. I was so bitter with life that gave me 30 years, and I was so out of control in Guam that they couldn't control me. I had no respect for the administration, nor did I have any respect for my fellow inmates. I did almost everything from hand-to-hand combat to... I just didn't have respect for life in general.
Yeah. So you, in and out of foster care, and
that's why it had led me into coming over to the mainland to serve the remainder of my time, which is I wasn't a federal prisoner at that time. I was a U.S. territorial prisoner from Guam, but being housed in the federal system in the United States.
So, Frank, just for robbery, you were given 30 years.
Yes, I had 24 counts of armed robbery and possession with deadly weapons.
So it was the possession that did it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how did you end up going to the United States? What did you do, or did you do anything, or they just decided to move you? I didn't hear that.
No, I got into some. I stabbed a correctional officer in Guam numerous times. Me and my co-defendant, and we were housed in the maximum security there until they were ready to let us out into general population, because we were just so young and wild that they were like, well, I don't think we should let these two out, because I would seriously think that everything would be out of control here, which it did turn out to be like that. So therefore, the administration could not hold us the way, or contain us the way they wanted to. So they said, well, we'll just send them over to the mainland, which is here in the U.S., because it's a more secure facility to house us than it is in Guam.
So, and I mean, there's a lot more to tell, and we're going to go into it. You're not going to hear from me very much, but I'm sitting here and I'm thinking and I know, I mean, here's this young guy ends up doing all these things. That's, looking back now, I'm sure Frank does not see that, I mean, he's so different today than that young boy that was abused and went through all of that in Guam and ended up in the United States like that. He's not that person. So,
no, when Frank was little, like one of the foster homes sent him down into septic tanks to clean out the sewage when he was 9. They beat him. They chained him to a tree. He wanted to join the Guamanian Children's Choir, which in Micronesia, the Mariana Islands, is very popular. His whole family can sing. The clan is known as the Singers in Guam. And they didn't allow him when he was 13, going on 14, to join the choir because already he had a reputation. I often wonder what would have happened to him if someone had allowed him to sing with those other children, because he has a beautiful voice. And so he was,
he knows what's happening next. He knows I'm going to ask him to sing.
Get out his guitar.
You know what, honey? You just said you wonder what would have happened if they had let him go to sing. And it's interesting because what happened, if like by allowing you to go in there was kind of like him being allowed to sing. It's exactly what, right? That's exactly, wow. So thank you for sharing that, Catherine, because that's
that's important.
Very important. So I have a question though. When you were in growing up, so when you talk about this family, is this your adopted family or is this your birth family?
As foster families, I was in foster homes in and out, and I used to run away from them. So it was just like I never stood in one foster home at all. I was just growing up with other kids that were running the streets as well. You know, that were troublemakers. They were way older than I was. Anyway,
so, but this family that we're talking about that Catherine's mentioning, is this your birth family that can sing, or is this your an adopted family?
Yeah, these are my birth family.
Okay, and you are are you involved with them to this day, connected to them?
Well, my mom had remarried, and those are my stepbrothers and stepsisters, and we do stay in contact. But it's not like, I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but we're just not that close.
Okay. Yeah,
I think they feel closer to him than he does to them.
They feel that towards me, but I don't feel that towards them because the fact of the matter is I was raised in a different environment.
Gotcha.
And that's part of the reason I say that. It's just...
And you're so different now. I mean, you've been, Americanized.
Yeah,
I mean, you've really had an interesting life. I mean, in prison and now North Raleigh.
Well,
I mean, I want to explain what that means. But so you're in a prison here in the States, higher security, and what's that like?
Well, it was a shock to me. It was a change of mingling with people, actually, and it was just a different. It was different. It was really different. I had to really learn really quick over here, because the way doing time over here and doing time in Guam is a very, very totally different. And what I mean by that is, in Guam, they're more accepting to you as a family than it is over here. It's like a dog-eat-dog world in the federal system here. You know, you're by yourself, you know. And there are a lot of wolves out there that would try to grab you and, try to turn you into homosexual activities or, it's just, you have to fend for yourself. Mm-hmm. Now, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, I did what I had to do to survive.
So you had to survive differently in the an American, in the States in prison than you did in Guam. I mean, that was a completely wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Totally different.
Wow.
And it shocked me, but then I learned it real quick, and I had to because I wanted to survive.
You wanted to survive.
Now, whether to survive in the prison is another thing, but I've never, in my wildest dream, thought that I would be back out here with a lovely woman that I consider my pride and joy, and I love her so much.
Okay, so now we're going to get to that part, because we can talk about prison ongoing, but the real good story now, we got all this other stuff. We got the fact that Catherine had money and she lived a high life. No reason in the world that she would find herself in prison, volunteering. She was doing fundraising and, socialite stuff. She wasn't in the prison. And then you have Frank, who's in the prison. I mean, coming from completely two different worlds. Totally, you can't get too different than this. And that, it's interesting because I said something we had a little chat yesterday, the three of us, and I said something yesterday about how different they were. And Catherine gave me such a great answer. One I will take with me for the rest of my life. Katherine, what was your answer yesterday when we spoke about this?
Well, I don't really remember because I just speak and I say what I'm feeling at the time. But I don't have a really good audio memory. But what I said was, Frank and I have more similarities on the inside than we have on the outside. You look at us and you don't see the same thing, but Frank and I both were from very large families. I'm one of 9, Frank's one of 10. We both had some abuse in our families, which people in general don't talk about, you know, when you're particularly from a middle-class family like I was. And Dad was a colonel in the Air Force, you know. And we both had brothers who killed themselves. We both had tragedy in our lives. And so those commonalities, which you wouldn't look at us and think we have, are the commonalities that are really important, that are on the inside of you rather than on the outside of you.
And that's what you saw. And that's what you saw,
that's
right?
What I saw. That's what I saw. And I was so amazed. He and I are both more fond of our grandmothers than anybody else. Those are the people that loved and raised us. And it's amazing how much we have in common, and we don't, you know, but we understand each other. From the get-go, we knew who each other was.
Mm-hmm. Frank, what were you going to say? You had something to say there.
No,
Did you have something to add?
I was just smiling at her and how, you know, we come so, you know, going back and...
That's
no,
it's pretty hard.
But you're doing beautifully, and you know what I love so much is how you feel so much and how you're sharing this with us now. This is a real Academy Award moment. This is real life, and I so honor you for sharing it like this. So thank you very much. And truly, the world is thanking you now. That's why I think you're overwhelmed with the love that you're receiving from all of us out here.
Well, because I love her so much. It's not about the money or, you know, like she said, we share a lot of things in common. You know, we share a lot of love for each other. And it's just hard on me sometimes when I go to think about it, and I'm really sorry that I'm...
What?
No, don't be sorry. Please don't be sorry. I'm so honored that you are feeling comfortable enough to feel the feelings you're feeling. Because you know what? Besides what you've been through and besides who you've been, the world, we need more men to be like you, and Amnon really, and my husband, and we need more men to share their emotions with the world. That's what we need. And I made a declaration last week that, I work with a lot of men, a lot of women in my coaching practice, but I made a decision that I wanted to work with more men because I feel like men have something so magnificent to share, and that we don't always give the men the chance to do that, nor have men given themselves a chance to do that. And you don't always have the words to choose or the place to do it. And I want men, if we're going to have a healed world, Frank, we need more men like you.
Well, I believe they are out there. I've met a lot of really, really great guys while I was incarcerated here in the federal system that, you know, would never be out, would never get out. But these people do have compassion, and, you know, if I can help them, I would, but it's impossible. And I know that these people also are seeking for the type of support that I have as well, you know.
Well,
and for people to hear them as well, you know.
You know what, Frank, you give those men in prison hope, but I'll tell you something. You can, I don't know, I'm getting this feeling that there's a lot of young boys, teenagers, young men out here that have not connected with their heart and soul like you have now, and like you might have had you been able to sing like you did when you met Katherine. And if you could give these guys, if you could help these guys know that the compassion and the love that they feel and their humanness that they have is valuable and strong and important, and maybe, just maybe, they won't take the other route. So you're very special, and I can understand why and how she fell in love with you, because I'm in love with you now too.
Well, it was easy. Well, the difference between Frank and some of the other fellows I visited, because over 3.5 years, through the Quaker program, Prisoner Visitation Support, I spoke with around 25 fellows. And I called them my fellows because I was really fond of them. But there weren't many that were as real as Frank, as honest and as open, but he kept it real. And he was the only one, when I first met them, that said to me, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Do you really want to know?" And he said, "Yes." So I told him about meeting the attorney on the train, seeing the movie, having vertigo, and all this stuff. And then 10 years later, I asked him, "What did you think when I said that?" And he said, "I thought you were a very nice lady, but you were a little confused." and that's so true.
Wow.
But it's all true. It's, I couldn't have thought up this stuff.
No.
Oh,
No.
I'm pretty imaginative, but I don't have this kind of imagination.
No. No. These kinds of things come from above or to the side, or they come from a divine energy, the universe. Something is transpiring that is way beyond. You couldn't write that. You couldn't write that, into your life. That's something that you observe, you take in, you welcome,
Well, I think you have a choice. If all this happened to me, I could have kept saying, "That's interesting," and not done anything. But to me, things like that hadn't happened before. And I said, this is interesting. What does it mean? Mm-hmm. And I think looking deeper is something that's good for all of us, Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So how did you two start having this relationship that went beyond just visiting? How did that begin?
Gosh. It was actually years later. And Frank was transferred, and I was leaving my husband. And Frank called me after about 9 months. I hadn't visited or any of the fellows. And he said, "Will you come and see me? I'm being transferred." And I hadn't seen him for 9 months, 10 months, 11. I didn't keep track of it. I wasn't involved, I didn't know. So we were talking, and I went there, and I told Frank I was leaving my husband, and he said, "Why?" And so I told him why I was leaving, and we talked again, and then he, how guys do, they cross their arms, and they rock back on the back two chair legs, walk back, being manly. And he said to me, "I would give up having children to have you." And I just looked at him and I said, "How old's your mother?" That's really, I am honored. This is very sweet, but how old's your mother? And he said, "I think she has a few on you." I thought that was pretty good. And I said, "I'll be your friend, and I'll help you wherever." But that was a really good opening dinger line. And a friend of mine once told me, "Pay attention to something you've never heard before. That may make it real." And I had to pay a different, deeper level of attention to this person. Right?
So what was it that you heard from him that you had never heard before?
I think he really saw me.
So you heard him really see you.
Exactly. A lot of people see what they want to see, or they see the outside, but Frank really saw me. It's very powerful to be truly seen.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
So you were leaving your husband, not for Frank, just because you were leaving your husband.
No, another story.
Another story. So, Frank, what did you see?
What did you see in me, babe?
Come on, babe.
When I first started, I knew about the program years ago, which is the PBS program. I was told to, at a young age, to try to be part of it, because these people would sit out there and talk to you and just have conversation with you, and just it'd be something different than hearing all the other things that's going on inside behind the walls. And I said, "Oh, really? I don't want to be no part of that. For what? I don't want to be out there and seeing somebody that I don't even know at all." But then then years comes, and I'm like, okay, so I signed up for the program, and they would ask you, like, would you prefer a male or a female to come and visit you? I said, well, maybe a female. Who knows? Whatever. So I had Katherine come and see me.
So wait a minute. So, okay, I want to go back to this a second. First of all, Frank, had you been having anybody visit you before?
No whatsoever. My family, actually, we weren't that close at all.
So you had nobody, like, from the outside world visit you in all this time? Yeah. And at this point, you'd been in prison how long?
I have been in prison 24 and a half years.
Not at that point.
Oh, at
That's
that
when
point,
you got out.
Yeah. I got out doing 24 and a half years. But during all those years, at the end of my time coming out, I did have one sister come out and see me.
Okay. But when But when Katherine started coming, you were in there how long?
Oh, I've been in about...
How old were you?
I was already, 33, 32?
I don't know.
That was about 32 years. I've been in quite some time.
12 years?
Yeah,
okay.
Something like
12
that.
years.
So you signed up for this program, and that was the first time Katherine came, right?
Yes.
And then you asked her to come back after she stopped coming.
After we became to know each other as friends, and shared a lot of, my backgrounds, her backgrounds, and sat there and just chatted. I didn't look at her in a sexual way, just to get away. I looked at her as a very good friend, an open-minded person that I could talk to and relate to, because she seems like that person that I wanted to have to talk to.
So what kinds of things did you talk about?
About families and her backgrounds as her families, and things in general, just family.
Sometimes just small things.
Yeah, just small
like
things.
Chasing down Marmalade the cat.
Yeah.
I mean, homey things that, and things on myself that I did that were really dumb, and joking things that would bring laughter to their lives. One time I remember I wore a blue jacket, and I realized I was dressing very similarly to the guards, the lady guards, and there are lady guards with long fingernails and coiffures. I don't know what they were doing there. I do not know if that is an equal opportunity place, really. But they... I felt badly that I didn't bring other color in their lives, because I was a designer and I know how important color is to people. I mean, it is physiologically important. Mm-hmm. And there is color and stimulus deprivation in prison. Mm-hmm. So I made it a rule to dress in bright colors, different colors, and things that they don't ordinarily see.
She always came in so beautiful. Really
He's
did.
prejudiced.
And she's so thoughtful, and she was you're so smart and thoughtful.
Always brought a smile to my face when I, because behind the walls, there's just a lot of tension. You don't. There's no room for smiling in there. What are you going to smile about? What is there to smile about at all? When somebody's being stabbed, or you see guards running, all over the place, and you're having to worry each and every day inside. So when Katherine comes to visit me, and I go into the visiting room and I see her, it brings a lot of smile to my face.
But
well, I did ask him, I thought this was funny. I did ask him, well, he told me first, because I didn't ask any of the fellows what they did. If they wanted to share it, that was fine, but it wasn't up to me to find out what they had done. I was only supposed to accept them as who they were, people. And so he tells me that he did a robbery on Guam. They did robberies, and I'm going like, how big is Guam? He says it's 30 miles by 80. By 8, not by 80, by 8. And I'm going, well, where were you going to go? Where were you going to go with this money? I think they knew you. Everybody's related, right? And he says, I was very young. And I go, yeah. Got the backstroke, down pat, and he would look at me and shake his head and just laugh. But I think I was irreligious, and I was straight. I was really straightforward. I was honest. And so the fellows really appreciated that, Frank included.
Mm-hmm. And you weren't scared, were you?
I was never, ever afraid. I was never, ever afraid. I was sent by God, and if something happened to me, this is funny because I don't know if I put it in the book or not, but they asked if, and you have to reapply every year. And so they took me, I wasn't around, and so Chaplain Burke took me back behind the walls, actually, and down where the intake was for the fellows, and that's normally not done. And all of a sudden, they asked me if I had any tattoos, and I had my eyebrows tattooed because as I got older, they got very thin. So I had my eyebrows tattooed, and I said yes, and they're waiting. And I said, well, I have my eyebrows tattooed, and they looked at me and they smirked, and they were laughing because they meant something identifiable in case, like there's a riot. And I just didn't think that way at all. And so I always felt protected. I always felt that even if I died there, okay, well, what the hey? I've led a really good life. To me, it was a win-win. I believe in afterlife. I believe in a source. And so it really, I was never, ever, ever, ever afraid. I don't understand it, really.
Well,
but I'm not.
I would like to share a little insight, I think. I very much believe in the power of our heart and positive emotion. I believe in anything positive. I believe that anything positive is far more powerful than anything negative. So, Frank, you proved that. You allowed her heart to talk to your heart, which was right there waiting to be spoken to, and it just melted everything else away, which it's going to. And when you come from your heart, there is nothing to fear. Everything is taken care of. Your heart would never hurt you and lead you into a stray or the wrong place or the wrong way. And so you exemplify the definitions of what this is. Look at that, man. You are terrific. What are you feeling now, Frank?
I feel so emotional.
Can you describe it any? Can you explain?
Well, because, coming from the background that I grew up, and I came very, very hard life. I've lived a hard life.
One time I was visiting Frank, and he was telling me about how he hadn't visited the last time with me and apologized to me because he hadn't come out. And his homies, because he was the leader of the Pacific Islanders, were winning, and they normally didn't win any of their physical, their sports events, for lack of a better word, and they were winning at bocce ball, for goodness sakes. And so he says he was so sorry that they were winning at bocce ball, and he had to be there to support them because he was their leader. And I said, well, that's really grand. And I said, well, obviously you're a leader. You're a gang leader. And Frank says, no, I'm not. And I said, well, there's a whole bunch of men that follow you, and to me that makes you a gang leader. And I said, have you ever thought, as much trust as they have in you, that you could lead men to good? And
well, I tried, my few years while changing in prison, I tried to help my young homeboys that were incarcerated from Guam in the federal system. They're like, there's more to being in trouble in here. There's a better life than this, and we all need to come together to help each other, not to try to go and hurt each other. And I try to use that phrase on them and let them know that, because I've lived that life. A lot of my homies did not live that life. They had a family. They have loved ones that cared for them. I didn't. I didn't have anyone at all.
And I saw that in him. And some of the people that I visited and then didn't have that grit, didn't have that determination, didn't have that strength of resolve to do something even while they were there. And it was different. It was different. It was
that's why
it was impressive, to be truthful.
I try to inspire everybody, not just my homeboys, but other people that I considered friends and that wanted that change as well. Because I've shared a lot with them, my upbringing, and there are people out there that care for us. We just have to learn to care for ourselves as well.
Right, and I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm going to ask you to take and we're going to. I'm not going to get ready to show your book, but I'm going to ask you a favor before. Hold on a minute. You're part of your work, Frank, is in letting the world know, because what you're talking about with your homeboys, that's how it is with everybody. With not everybody, that's how it is with a lot of people. People don't realize what's possible when you really do love somebody, or when you see the sunshine, or you see a beautiful woman walk in with a beautiful jacket who's there to just be nice. I mean, we don't give these things enough importance, and people need to know that it really is what makes the difference. We wouldn't be at war if people got the simple message of how you were brought up, where Katherine came from, where you came from, how you came together, what you've created now. If that could be bottled and shared, just blast it out there, because this is the healing. You exemplify the healing in the world. You are examples of what the world can be like and how it can be. And before Amnon shows you the book, I just want to read a few things that are on here. So get that tissue out, because you're going to start to cry again. So impressed by their story. This is Charlie. Their love and such great insight into the world behind the bars. And then Michelle said, it's amazing, Charlie. It's a great story. Michelle says, I think Frank has many years of emotion inside of him, and it's coming out, and which is a blessing for all of us to see. And Charlie says, it's so true. She's truly touched by Frank. So we want to show your book. Oh, there it is. You want to describe your book a little bit for us, Katherine?
Well, it's like I had said to you yesterday. I was asked to do this by visiting and today other people. And I thought, oh, okay. The only way, I never thought I was going to write anything, and it's certainly not, but it's true. Everything in there is true. That's why I had to write it, because hopefully it has my voice, but that people are warmed by it, and they see people behind prison walls with more of a humanity. That they're people. They're people. They're not just thugs. And at times, like Frank had told me, he said I was a real mean thug. But they can change. And this is a book about transcending, going beyond what you were before. And there's humor in it. And there's a great deal of love. But I hope so, because I was told I was supposed to write this. And I thought, who, me? And so I wrote it. And I just hope it reaches where it's supposed to go, so that people know there is hope, and change is absolutely possible, right? Right.
So I think you were told to live the life you were living, and then I think you were told to write this book. Frank, I think you were told to live the life you lived, and I think you were told to live the life you're living now. And I'm telling you to go out there and share this as big as you can and with everybody, and don't change one darn thing about yourself, not one thing, other than just going out there. Don't change your emotion, don't hide it, because that's all part of the experience of gratitude and of this change.
I just want to be happy in my life. And I know it was a big struggle, hardship, but I think God has blessed me, you know?
Absolutely. And when you say humanity, that's exactly right. I mean, I feel so hopeful with humanity. There's so much good out here, and so many delicious, delectable stories like yours that we get to shine a light on and share with the world.
Well, it's like anyone who's a different color, comes from a different background, they all, whether it's some guy that hopes to have 2 oxen for his family in India, or wants to send someone to Yale, they all want something better. They want something good.
Yes.
They want something that is meaningful for them.
Right.
And it's a human yearning.
Yes.
It's a yearning put there to rise.
Oh, yes.
And
yes. I absolutely. I believe, I so strongly believe that people would do better if they could and when they can. I mean, at any point, just like you, Frank, at any point when something touches you in your knowingness, in the love, in the knowingness, in your humanity, it just changes everything. And in those moments, we connect, we care about each other, we're not going to hurt each other. I mean, it's just magnificent. Frank, would you like hum a few bars of something? Do you feel comfortable doing that?
Singing anything
Will you?
tomorrow?
Will you?
I really...
What about Unchained Melody?
No, I mean, it's up to you. I think it would be so fitting and beautiful if you could, but it's okay.
I would love to, but I'm just so emotional.
Okay. How about when we do part 2? Would that be good when we do part 2?
Part 2? Oh, sure.
All right. Well, part 2. So tell me a little bit, Katherine. I know you have children. How did they accept all of this?
Well, I'll say that even the men in my family were much more accepting of it, surprisingly enough, than the women. My girls were at first like, oh, Mom has always been different. My God, she's really gone off the edge. But as they have known Frank, they care for him very much and consider him family. He is family. He's our family. And we're his. And But, I raised the kids to respect all nationalities and all color. And that they did. They were more worried about where he'd been, and they just thought, well, Mom has a good heart. And like I told the fellows I visited, you know better than I, not everyone should come out on the street. But there are many who can, many who should.
Absolutely.
And that's what I had taught my girls too. And people would ask me, what would happen if one of the fellows I visited appeared at my door? I said, I guess I get them a cup of coffee, and see how they're doing.
Right.
And you have to be that way. You have to walk your talk. You have to have. What I learned from Frank was, over 19 years of knowing him now, is I learned to have more courage. But you should have sensible courage. I would not instigate adopt a convict for everybody.
Right.
You ought to get to know someone really well.
Right. Well, I told you yesterday that I dated an ex-con, and he had been in the federal big house in Butner, and for possession, but I was younger, not too young, but I was younger. I had children at the time. I was divorced, and I didn't see that. I just saw this guy who wanted to make it. I saw a guy who was being turned down right and left for a job because he was an ex-con. I saw a guy who was struggling and just, and that's all I saw. And, I have that to look back on, and, I carry that in my heart as well. And nobody was thrilled with me back then. I will tell you.
Oh, I tell you.
Heck no.
Lots of friends.
No, we didn't tell everybody. We kept it a little secret.
But, I'll say this for my friends that have been accepting. They are my friends.
Sure, absolutely.
And they are saying, if you love him, that's good enough for us.
Yeah.
And they have really, but I have to say, they have really true hearts too.
Yep. Well, I'm going to tell you something. You live in North Raleigh, and as many of you know, you might be listening to us from all over the world. I also live not far from Raleigh and Cary, and I'm going to make a point of going out for dinner or something with these two lovely people, with my husband, and my husband and Frank will be sharing the rag, because my husband will be crying the whole time, I promise. He will be so touched by listening to them and hearing this story and getting the opportunity to meet the two of you, that his tears will be rolling all night, because I'm blessed to be with a man who can cry too, and that's a blessing. And so, where could everybody find your book?
On Amazon.com. Just look for my name and Transcending the Razor Wire. It's also on Kindle. And we really hope that people will find the story, that it touches them, that their hearts go out.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask you all to please make sure to post it. I have it on all of my sites. In a couple of days, probably tomorrow, we'll have the show notes from today's show that we'll be posting, and links for getting the book. And Katherine Young and Michelle, who is one of the loves that we have in our chat, has suggested that Frank put together a CD and have it go along with the book. So maybe a CD of love songs, Frank.
He sings love songs so well.
I know he does. I can only imagine.
Down.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And so, just a suggestion, and a beautiful one at that, I think. A wonderful,
beautiful suggestion.
Yeah, a beautiful suggestion to go along with it. So, Nancy, I know you're listening. Is my dear friend and their editor and publicist, and I know she's listening. So, a CD, Nancy, a CD.
No pressure.
No pressure. All right, Nance, no pressure. No pressure. So I just I love the story. I think it's a model story for so many relationships and so much of what is needed in this world for healing. Both of these individuals individually as well as a couple. So let me ask you, just in closing, in any final words, Katherine, what would you like to share and leave our listeners, viewers, watchers, and all these beautiful people with?
Well, I'm a hypnotherapist, and often I tell people to use their minds with their hearts, and that engages wisdom, discernment. And if we use just our minds, we may become too cold. If we just use our hearts, it may be too emotional. But together, using your mind and your heart, you can do really good things.
Perfect. That's called balance.
That's balance.
That's balance.
Harmony.
Yep. And Frank, what about you?
What?
What do you have to say?
What would you like to leave with everyone today?
I just want to thank everybody for listening. And,
Thank you.
Just thank you.
Yes, and you know what, honey? That I have to say that when you say listening, we have, and you couldn't have said it any better. There was no more to say. Everyone I know out here is listening to you and truly listening, not just with their ears, but they're listening quietly. They're listening the way listening is meant to be, from the heart. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for being here and doing all of this. And let's see, we have, Michelle, he better get used to being loved by the world. Okay. Oh, and that's an interesting perspective because, taking it in. But you'll take it as much as you can, and it won't be too much, because it's never too much. You can't ever take in too much love, and surround yourself. So thank you very, 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 very much for being here, and I want to thank you all, everyone out here, for sharing this moment, because it just felt like a moment with us. It was a blessing to have you here, and if I can be of any service to anyone. If you have an idea for another show, if you want to just chat with me at all, you can see my name and click up there and write me anytime. I'm more than delighted to share with any one of you. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to be here today. And we will be here next week at 1 o'clock Eastern Time with another phenomenal story, of course. And one more thing to you both. Thank you for blessing us, and Amnon has something to say.
Next week on the Breaking Free, I'm going to interview a nice girl, Marilyn Shannon, about her past.
Now we want to know, because some things a girl just doesn't tell everybody everything.
No.
But thank you, Amnon. I'm. You know what? And this is a perfect way for us to segue into ending, is because I will share these things. Because I really feel like I'm not, you might look at me and say, she dated a prisoner or a Harley Davidson person who was only had a bike and didn't have a house. I mean, yes. And that's how we get where we are today, right?
That's right.
And so I love you both very much from my heart. Thank you for being here, and thank you all for being here and sharing today with us. And don't go away, Frank and Katherine. Just stay there. Don't click off when we're over. The rest of you, mwah!
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals. That VidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.